Jai Ma Kamakhya, Jai Bhairava, Jai Matara. Today I will be speaking to you about a topic which I had planned to make a video sometime earlier, but there were other topics that had piled up, so I could not speak on that. So one of the key aspects of any sadhana, as you know, as those who have been following my videos and uh, other sadhana related details would be aware that one of the first aspect of any sadhana is obviously the mantra or the stuti or the stotra, right? After that, the next stage of sadhana, and that is extremely important, is the use of yantras in sadhana. So, what exactly is a yantra? Very simply, when we are using the mantra of a devata, any devata, say Om Bhairavaya Namah, or any mantra of Tara, or any mantra of Kamakhya, or any mantra of Skandha, any deity for that matter, we are using the verbal representation of the devata, phonetic representation, sound energy is being used. So what happens in mantra is that the first principle, and again I have already spoken of this many times, the mantra is the subtle body of the deity, meaning whatever the mantra is, the energy that is created out of the mantra is directly connected to the sukshma condition of the devata, subtle body of the deity. Okay, so there is no difference between the mantra and the devata. This is the first principle of any mantra sadhana, any devata upasana, because without the mantra you cannot do devata upasana at all. But there is a stage beyond that. So what is that? Use of yantras. So yantra is nothing but uh, a, a diagrammatic representation of the same thing that the deity represents. But here the diagrammatic representation is more like that of, it could be a set of squares or triangles or circles or various kinds of geometric patterns basically. So these patterns are not randomly chosen. They come to us from the texts, from the shastras, and the specifically the tantras have various yantras of deities mentioned there. All deities have their yantra. So based on those, then comes the upasana of the yantra. So before one goes into Yantra Upasana, and it's not really complicated. I mean, if one has been doing mantra sadhana, then it's a logical step to use a yantra. So apart from yantra, what are the other methods of worship? One is to have a vigraha of the deity. Vigraha of a deity is a little bit more problematic. I don't normally recommend people to have vigrahas, because the idea is that if you have the vigraha, say for example of a Mahavidya, then you must know how to worship the vigraha. The worship paddhati is not so simple as, I feel like putting some flower, I feel like doing something or the other. Um, it's not that if you don't know the full worship, there is going to be a negative impact, but it shows a lack of responsibility on the part of the upasaka. That each step has to be taken in a gradual manner with full understanding and complete responsibility of what you are doing. So if you have a vigraha, before you take a vigraha, I mean, those who already have a vigraha, do not bother about it. Carry on whatever you are doing. But those who are planning to take a vigraha, you must first ask yourself that do you have the capacity to do the right kind of upachara, puja, seva of the vigraha. So there are many details regarding vigrahas. Depending on the size of the vigraha, depending on the material of the vigraha, depending on the prana pratisthapana of the vigraha, accordingly you have to add the amount of consummates, the proportionate amount of puja, seva paddhati has to be done. Now here the pujas become more complicated if it is a Mahavidya Upasana, because Mahavidya pujas are the most complex pujas in Hinduism. There is no deity Upasana puja paddhati of any devata which is as complicated as the Mahavidya Upasana. Specifically of them, the first three, Kali, Tara, Shoroshi, their Upasana is complicated. And their Upasana requires knowledge of how to do it. It requires also Diksha, samskara that has been done in a specific manner and things like that. Still, Kali Puja, there is some difference of opinion. Some people believe that, even without the Diksha, it can be done. I'm not going into that controversy, but yes, these things are important part of puja paddhati. So basically, if you have a Vigraha, you must know that whether you have the capacity to do seva. If you have a Vigraha of Bhairava, you have to do Abhishekam of the Vigraha at different times, different pujas, and it's basically a sense of responsibility that comes into the Upasaka. Only somebody who has that responsibility, and responsibility means suppose you're traveling somewhere, what happens to the Vigraha? Who does puja to the Vigraha? So these questions have to come in. Again, if you already have a Vigraha, then don't bother too much about it, because that will only give you additional tension, what to do, what not to do. But if you are planning to take a Vigraha, maybe these are the questions you should have in mind. Now, instead of a Vigraha, the other method of doing the puja is and that is a very universal step, is the Ghatastaphana, which is that you establish the Kalasha, the Ghata, again with the right mantras and the appropriate vidhan, and you invoke the Devata, and then you do the Upasana of the deity. That also is a little bit complicated process. Not that complicated, but yes, it takes some time to practice. The other method is, if you have a yantra, the advantage of having a yantra is that it captures the energy of the devata, and it requires lesser amount of seva than that of a vigraha. A vigraha requires a lot of involvement. So whenever you are doing seva of a vigraha or a puja paddhati, fundamentally these are methods of offering prana to the deity, because prana is what feeds the whole universe. Prana is also what feeds devata. So moment you are chanting a mantra, you're offering even a flower to the deity. That is nothing but offering of a prana to the deity. Prana shakti, everything contains some prana shakti. So this prana shakti is being offered with the help of the mantras, help of the paddhati, help of the rituals to the devata, so that there is a certain appropriate response from the deity. This is the process. Now, instead of vigraha, suppose you have a yantra, the amount of seva that the yantra requires is generally lesser than that of a vigraha. And it is as effective as a vigraha, especially for individual upasakas. Yantra is a very fantastic thing. However, as it's common sense idea to understand that today everything is highly commercialized, everything is easily available also, which is not a bad thing in itself, if you provided you have the right discrimination of what to take and where to take it from and all that. So there are hundreds of websites and individuals who sell yantras. No comments on them, but uh, if a yantra does not have prana pratisthapana and it is not made in the right manner, it will simply not be able to contain the energy of the deity. And if it does not contain the energy of the deity, then it is just as good as a random diagram with no meaning. It's almost like having a vigraha where there is no prana pratisthapana that has been done. So therefore, it is just a piece of material without the presence of the deity. Similarly, a yantra without the right prana pratisthapana is not effective, very simply put. Now, before doing prana pratisthapana, there are certain things regarding yantras. For example, most important is the material of the yantra. What is it made of? The best yantras are ideally made of gold, but gold is costly, so there are gold platings done on the yantras. And making of the yantra requires the right design, the right proportions, and the right time. There's a very traditional method. There are places where these yantras are made, some in Kashi, some in South India. Very recently, a friend of mine, an Upasaka friend, referred me to a particular place of yantra makers in South, and they did a fantastic job of making certain yantras that I'd asked them to make. So basically, now I will not tell names or anything because you will start running after these places. But the primary idea is that the reason I'm telling you is so that you have an understanding of that. So if a yantra is made of simple copper, the amount of prana it can hold is going to be very less. And very quickly, within months or even a year, its energy is going to deplete. And once its energy starts depleting, you have to refill the energy, reinvigorate the yantra. There are processes by which you again put in prana of the at least some amount of the Shakti of the Devata into the yantra, so that it gives you some results actually in the worship. Whereas if the material is of gold, then that yantra can last for a very long time and contain that energy and produce a very powerful spiritual effect on the upasaka. If not gold, then it comes next is silver. So like this, there are various types of yantras and various types of materials that go into making of a yantra. Apart from the material, the other thing is the exact diagram of the yantra. That one must be very careful of while choosing a yantra, because in the text, in the tantric texts, there are different yantras. In fact, sometimes a devata will have multiple yantras. Okay, if you do a simple puja of a deity, first thing that you learn is to draw the basic mandala. The basic mandala is, I mean, anybody who has any knowledge of tantra would be taught the very first thing, which is like, even if you place the achman patra, the argha patra, you have to make a basic mandala on the ground. Okay, that is a inverted triangle, a circle, and a square. Basic mandala. Even that is a yantra. So everything, any diagrammatic representation of the devata is a yantra. So after the yantra is made, then the important thing is to do sadhana on the yantra. Sadhana on the yantra means you keep the yantra in front, you do puja on the yantra. You can do the full puja of the devata on the yantra, including invoking the deity, upacharas, you are offering panchopachara, shorashopachara, you are doing puja of the various avarana devatas, which means parivara devatas of the mula devata, which is the each deity will have various avaranas or layers of deities surrounding them. Okay, specifically very complicated and powerful deities always are surrounded by many layers. And then there will be the guru mandala of the upasaka, etc. So multiple beings, the mula devata as well as the surrounding beings, all of them can be worshipped in a yantra. And even if somebody doesn't know all the method of worship, they can simply chant the mantra of the deity, offer some naivedyam to the yantra, offer a deep and a dhoop, and just basic things. Okay, some fragrant attar or something like that, on the yantra, some pushpa flowers, just 5 basic things you offer, and then you do japa of the deity, and over time you will see that the yantra produces a, if it has the correct prana pratisthapana and it is correctly made, then it will increase the upasana capacity uh, of the upasaka. The experience of the upasaka will just shoot up like anything. So this is the primary reason why almost all good upasakas will have at least 1 or 2 yantras of deities. Again, the material of the yantra is also important. Sometimes some yantras can be made in shaligram also. There are yantras that can be carved on a banalinga also. So banalinga, when it is the correct banalinga is present with somebody, then one can carve the yantra on the banalinga and then do upasana on that yantra. In fact, it is said that on Banalinga, if a yantra is carved, then it can, depending on the deity, but more or less a Banalinga is one such kind of a Shivalinga naturally forming, where any upasana of any deity in the Shiva Parivara, Shiva Shakti Parivara, can be done on a Banalinga. Similarly, if there is a Shaligrama, and I have never worshipped a Shaligrama, but some reliable people, friends, knowledgeable people told me about yantras they have in Shaligrama. So there are 2 things. One is that if the Shaligrama already has the formation of Lord Vishnu, then it has to be a Vaishnava Shaligrama. However, there are certain Shaligrama stones that do not have natural formations. In those, various Devata yantras can be carved, and then ritualistic puja, etc., can be done on them. Then they also produce a very strong and powerful result. In the end, it is the same principle. There is a way to capture the prana. Everything in the universe is prana. Now, how that prana relates to a specific deity and how we invoke a part of the prana into an object in front of us, and then we relate to that object through the process of sadhana, that itself is the whole tantra. So now, instead of going and searching in front of yantras, searching for yantras online in different shops, etc., there is a simple Bhairava Upasana that anybody can do at home, even if you don't have a yantra. I mean, if you have a yantra and if it has the right prana pratisthapana, well and good, then nothing to worry. If it does not, if it's just a commercially bought yantra, there is a good chance that it won't have the prana pratisthapana, and it is not easy to do prana pratisthapana of a yantra, specifically If the Upasaka does not have the right amount of Shakti, he or she cannot do Pran Pratisthapana. It is not just a mechanical chanting of the mantras and doing certain rituals. No, there is a certain amount of, first there is to be a invocation of the deity into the yantra, then there has to be ritualistic puja, then there are mantra japas, homa, tarpana, marjana, etc. For days it has to carry on so that the yantra can actually gather power of the devata. And then you worship, and then that yantra is established, and japa ityadi is done on the yantra and produces a very fantastic result. So for somebody who does not have a yantra, there is a very effective method of worshipping, which is basically, I'll give you one example with Vatuk Bhairava sadhana. And this is not just a sadhana, but this is something that can be used as a bit like a prayoga also for positive things, and it can bring out a lot of interesting effects and positive developments to the sadhana. So basically, take a white sheet of paper and draw a very simple Vatuk Bhairava Yantra. So again, if you go through text, you will see that each of the tantras describe multiple kinds of Vatuk Bhairava Yantras for different types of purposes. But a basic yantra would be a six-pointed star surrounded by a circle. Outside of the circle, there are 8 petals, Ashtadala, and then there is a square, just this much. Okay. In that, after you draw this on a piece of paper, draw it with a red ink. Okay, and draw it in a way that looks pleasing and aesthetically good. Don't just make some haphazard few lines and it something that nobody can figure out what it means. It should look good. If it is not pleasing to you as the upasaka, it is not going to be pleasing to the devata. Rule number 1: any upasana sadhana paddhati you are doing, any offerings you are giving to the deity, even a yantra is like an offering. If it causes some disturbance to you as an individual, if you think that okay, it is not of the best quality, if you have doubts about it, the deity is not going to accept it. Make sure of that it is of good quality, which means basically take some time, draw it properly, and you can start the sadhana on any Sunday or a Tuesday. Those are the best days. Even Friday is also good, provided it's done after 8 o'clock at night. Sunday and Tuesday, any time of the day, you can do that. Nights are of course good, but other times are also good. So you draw the yantra. After you draw the yantra, then write down the Mula Mantra of Vatuka Bhairava in another piece of paper and put it on the yantra. Okay. Now keep this piece of paper on a plate or a red cloth or something. Remember, the yantras were drawn with red ink. Okay, and it should be reasonably thick, so it looks like a proper yantra. After that, you do the Dhyan mantra of Vatuka Bhairava. You ask and pray to Vatuka Bhairava to be present in front of you in the yantra. Light a diya, agarbatti, some flowers, and some naivedyam. Whenever you are doing Bhairava Upasana, especially Vatuka Upasana, you have to offer naivedyam. Without naivedyam, the Upasana is never going to be fully successful. So whatever naivedyam you have, you can offer sweets, you can make jaggeries, or if there's something you are preparing at home, that also you can do. And I have again mentioned this before, that whenever you are cooking for a devata, then the cooking has to be slightly different from normal cooking. You cannot taste the food while you are cooking. The utensils have to be kept separate. So all these basic rules of acharam have to be followed when you are making food for the devata. So anyway, once you have these things, keep the yantra, and then the Vatuk Bhairava Mula Mantra, keep chanting the Mula Mantra, clicking with a clicker because it's easier to count that way, and keep flowers, kumkum, vibhuti, and ashtagandha, a mixture of these things. Okay, flowers, flower petals, vibhuti, fresh vibhuti, not that has been offered, fresh vibhuti, ashtagandha, and kumkum. Mix these things together and chant the Vatuk Bhairava Mula Mantra 3 malas. And as you keep chanting, with every chant, 3 malas means each mala is 108 count. So basically 3 times 108 count you will chant. With each counting, you take a little bit of the ingredients that you have prepared and keep offering on the yantra. Okay. So basically 3 malas, with each mantra that you chant, you pour some ingredient on the yantra, pour some ingredient on the yantra, like this. This ritual carry on for 11 days. keep the yantra as it is. After the everything has been poured, say 3 malas are completed, then either you can keep it on the yantra or you can remove it and keep it in a separate plate, but keep it properly. Don't, waste it, because it's going to be very important. Next day, again, you do the same thing. Like this, if you continue for 11 days and then you gather those mixture, that vibhuti, uh, that kumkum, ashtagandha, and the flower petals. And the flower petals, because there will be larger petals sometimes. So, best is to put it under inside some book so that they become very thin, and then crush it completely. And that mixture, if you carry it with you in a piece of paper or put it into a silver amulet and wear it, etc., it is going to bring you a lot of blessings of Batuka Bhairava. It will kind of protect you from various things. At least a first level of protection. Here it must be told that when I say protect, it's a generic statement. So, for example, if 20 people are doing it, this is going to bring a positive result to at least 15 or 16 people. 4 to 5 people will not get the results because their karmas or their horoscopes or their problems may be more intense. So, whenever you have a difficult situation, it's because the karmas that are affecting you are blocking your happiness, blocking the positive results that you want. So, when you do sadhana, the question is the sadhana sufficient to do that, to remove all blockages? Any sadhana is good enough if it's an effective sadhana. It's good enough to remove at least 70-80% of people's problems. Always there's going to be 20% where the problem is of an intensity where ordinary sadhanas will not work. So do not come back and saying that, okay, I tried this, there's no miraculous thing that happened. Statistically, it is going to produce a miraculous thing to almost at least a 70-75% of the people who try this, because I've seen that in people. I've seen this method. I not only I myself, but I have done that for others at times, and it's very effective and produces a really good result. At the end of the 11th day, two things you have to do. So 11 days you are keeping now. 11 days every day you have to light a diya, or you can keep an akhanda diya. That is even better if you do this. On the 11th day, ensure that you go to any Shiva temple, make some offerings there, feed at least one child or anybody. In fact, if you can find a child, a little boy, then it's very good. If not, then anybody who is ready to take some food from any poor person, anybody. Basically at least feed one individual, minimum one individual, okay? And the yantra paper that you had kept there, either you can fold it and keep it in your puja space, or you can do visarjan of it on a flowing water anywhere. Mind you, it has to be flowing water. It cannot be stagnant water where things, sometimes the water becomes um, uh, maybe it has mixture of other things and the water becomes it smells bad or things like that. You cannot put it there. You cannot put it in the drain also, anything like that, because it's already contains certain divine energies of Vatuka Bhairava. So you have to, best is if there's a flowing water means the water is pure more or less, because it's carrying along with it all the ingredients that it comes. You can offer it into the flowing water. So anytime anything is offered into the flowing water, especially after puja, it's a form of visarjan of the Devata that we are doing. The energy that you created is going to go to the deity, and he or she is then going to give you the results, the phala of the karma that you have done. This is the basic principle of sadhana. If you do not have flowing water, fold that piece of paper and keep it in your puja space, okay? And that kumkum and the mixture that you have created over the 11 days of sadhana, little bit you can use it, you can give it to others around you, or you can just store it, and as and when required you can just keep it in a piece of paper or something and put it in your pocket and go. Suppose there is some difficult situation, something, whether there is a exam or anything, or in some cases, again, if the flower petals are completely dried and crushed, if there is a disease or if there is a health issue, one can even have a pinch of that with water, continue for a few days, and every time you have it, you do a mental prayer to Vatuka Bhairava to help you cure yourself of whatever problems that are coming. So this is a very simple, very effective prayoga, and it works quite well. And this is also an application of the yantra, where you are drawing the yantra and you are doing visarjan of the yantra, because it's a temporary yantra. It's made on paper. Paper is not an ideal, base on which a proper longer yantra, I mean, a yantra that will last with you for a long time can be kept. However, this is still effective method, and in fact, um, uh, You would have seen that in many those who have seen Buddhist pujas, Vajrayana Buddhism. Not I'm not talking about the other Buddhism, Vipassana and all that. In Vajrayana Paddhatis, one of the things you will see that the monks will make mandalas of deities over times, over periods of times, not over days actually. Periods of times means 3, 4, 5, 7 days, etc. And then the mandala is done. Then they do the Visarjan of the mandala. The principle of this puja is very powerful. Even it can be done by those who are doing various deity upasana. Suppose you know the Batuka Bhairava Yantra. Now, creating a mandala properly on the puja space is not possible for a large number of people, except maybe those who are professional priests or those who are into this full time. For them, it is one thing. For the average person who has to go to office and lead his life, creating a mandala is not easy. But what you can do is have a copy, white paper, piece of pen, red ink pen, and for example, you're doing Batuka Bhairava sadhana. Every day you do the sadhana and also draw the yantra. Every day you do the sadhanas and also draw the basic yantra. And while you are doing the yantra, do it with a sense of reverence for the deity. Because every time you are doing the yantra, somehow or the other, even a fractional portion of you, your consciousness, your chitta is connecting to the energy of the deity, right? So as you keep doing this day after day after day, it also builds a stronger contact with the deity. The energy that the yantra represents gets embedded into your chitta, in your consciousness, and it guides you in ways that you cannot even imagine. And later on, again, you can do visarjan of all this into flowing water, or you can just fold them and keep it in a safe space. Don't throw it into dustbins or drains or anything like that, because these are divine diagrams and they have a power and an energy. You have to respect that. This method can be done with other deities also, but with Vatuka Bhairava it works extremely well, and I have myself tried that various times, uh, and I've seen that it produces a very strong effect, especially for people who are into Bhairava Upasana. So anybody who is completely new to Bhairava Upasana, wanting to start, can start doing the Ashtami Vishesh sadhanas that are given out in the WhatsApp channel, um, and also start with the Bhairava Nama Mantra and see my previous videos on that, on Bhairava Sadhana. So once you are into a bit of Bhairava Sadhana for some period of time, and then you shift to Vatuka Bhairava Upasana, this is a very effective method of getting blessings from Vatuka Upasana, Vatuka Bhairava. Remember, Vatuka Upasana itself is a very complicated process. It's not as simple as it appears. I mean, I see a lot of people doing a very simple mantra japa. That is wonderful at the beginning stages of sadhana, and that also produces a lot of effect. But then there are, in the more complicated stages of Vatuka Upasana, Vatuka himself becomes the Mula Devata. And then there is many avaranas around Vatuka whose puja has to be done, tarpana has to be done, bali has to be offered, various things are there. It's a whole system of paddhati of puja. But Vatuka is kind in itself. If somebody doesn't try to be too smart or too clever for that matter, nobody likes clever people trying to be too smart than necessary. Uh, Instead has a sense of surrenderance and devotion towards the deity, and has already been connected to the Bhairava Tattva through the process of the Namayapa, has been doing for months. I mean, there are thousands and thousands who have been doing it specifically for them. And if you have certain degree of reverence and you're doing Vatuka Upasana, then this particular sadhana prayoga that I mentioned, it is like a prayoga because it's only an 11-day process. You will not only see results, but more than that, you will actually enjoy doing it. So 3 malas that I mentioned, and I'm mentioning this because the moment I make a video, there are a lot of comments and questions that come in. So there will be 1 or 2 people who may want to do more number of malas. That is fine to do. 3 is the basic minimum. This is like, I'm assuming that it is for an individual who has just started Vatuka Upasana at the initial stages of it, just completed maybe 1 Anushthan of Vatuka or some. A Devata Upasana at the end of the day is Anushthan after Anushthan after Anushthan. Not one, but multiple Anushtans, 3, 4, 5, 6. That is how you contact the deity. That is how your karmas are reduced in a way that you can get in touch with the deity very easily. 1 Anushthan is nothing. It's just like the base. Multiple Anushtans, 6, 7 Anushtans sometimes are required to make your consciousness completely in sync with the Devata, so that, and every time you're doing the Anushthan, you're doing the japa, you're doing puja, basically you are generating some Shakti which is eroding away the karmas that block you from having a complete and immediate contact with the deity. That is the whole principle of sadhana. So I hope it's helpful, and I hope there are Bhairava Upasakas and Batuka Upasakas who can try this. And I'm sure you will like it, and may Batuka Bhairava bless you all. Jai Ma Kamakhya, Jai Bhairava Baba, Jai Mataram.